I'd like to move into a little bit more of the strategy and best practices when it comes to looking at really what makes a good deleting name. So both Jonathan and Michael, I'd love to hear both of you speak to this around what people should be looking for.
I can go first. This is Michael. I think the first step you need to do is really determine what type of names are you looking for, what's going to fit your business, and there's really kind of zone in and target into those names, and then utilizing those tools will help you get there. Whether it's parking and monetization, which would be keyword rich or keyword friendly domains, whether it's reselling, which you're paying close attention to the buying and selling market, in any kind of industry trends to use those key terms or those specific short TLDs that are selling in the aftermarket, or if it's personal use, where you want short, memorable domains that have an SEO or effect to them, or have backlinks, or provide you with a branding effort for your business.
Jonathan,
yeah, and I think that. Yeah, I was going to say, and I would just echo what Michael said there, that I think the key is really just to hone in on what it is that you're focusing on, and then once you're clear there, and I think a lot of folks kind of go in getting an idea of where they're at in the space and what their purpose is. I think once they are there and know what names they're trying to target, there are things that then they can do to try to hone in on those particular kinds of names. So whether it's parking and monetization, try to get traffic stats and things like that will help guide what it is that they're trying to buy and what they're interested in. If it's reselling based on market trends, I see that we've highlighted that 4-character numeric, and we're talking about sort of like the Eastern or Chinese inventory and some of the commodity style inventory, understanding what those names are trading at currently, what are the floors and for those names in those particular buckets, so that you can recognize what you would want to purchase a name for and what you think you could sell it for if you're trying to flip it relatively quickly. Obviously, if it's personal or business use, then then there's a whole conversation to be had around what do you need to do in order to brand properly and build a site and develop a business around a particular domain name or a particular idea. And once you have a sense of what that end goal is, and you really have figured out your place in the space, if you will, then you can go through the different lists and some of the other tools that are available to look at the big chunk of names that are dropping every single day in order to find the names that are really interesting to you and really fit what it is that you're trying to do.
Well, Jonathan, while you're on that note, let's talk about kind of looking at really what it comes down to kind of across all the board around best practices. And there's some of these things you've mentioned, but it'd be nice to kind of summarize for people a lot of the best practices that you would recommend for people when it comes to trying to take advantage of drop inventory.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think that doing the research and knowing your tools, I think number one is a very good one. Ultimately, as we talked about, we've got things like saved searches and the email notifications. You want to make sure, so there are definitely those types of tools and features on both of the SnapNames and NameJet, which can help with that. You really want to understand the platform and the timing, like when do I need to get my back orders in by, when do the auctions begin, when are the auctions going to close, really familiarize yourself with the way that those processes work so that again, when to get the names in, when you want to when you have to be present, how to use things like proxy bids and things, which I think we mentioned that a little bit in number 3, but familiarize yourself with the download list and some of the other third-party tools too that are out there that can help you gauge if parking is what is driving your domain acquisition strategy, then know what tools you can utilize to try to get that information so that you can accurately target domains, so you know which domains have that kind of value for you, and then also some of the different domain appraisal tools and sites that are out there that maybe could help you recognize when good deals are available. The second best practice, not second in order, but number 2 on our list, these aren't in any kind of priority order, but cast a wide net. Use all the relevant backorder services. As I mentioned before, you've got the SnapNames, NameJet, conglomerate. You've also then have Dropcatch. There's Phoenix. There are a few others. No Dropcatch service is going to catch 100% of the names, and so I think you need to be clear on all of the platforms. If you have a specific name that you absolutely want to make sure that you have a chance to get, you want to put your back orders in all the necessary platforms, although I think that some of them, such as Dropcatch, do public auctions. So if they catch the name, you probably have an opportunity to participate even without a back order. I'd actually, Mike, can you confirm, is that how they work?
Yeah, I believe they just present it to their buying base, and you can join into that auction without having a back order before it goes ahead.
Even without a back order, right? Now for us, you can only participate in the auction if you place the back order. So keep that in mind, that for both SnapNames and NameJet, the idea is we do private auctions. I'm not saying this is a better approach, but this is just how we've decided to do it. We do think that it provides a better overall experience for our customers, and that they've taken the time to do the research, place the back orders. They should be rewarded for that. So, our way of doing that is saying that, look, only folks who've taken the time and actually expressed the interest and placed the back order in advance of the drop are going to be able to participate in that auction in a private auction setting. So, but either way, you should understand how all the platforms work that matter, and then set your strategy accordingly. And and the great thing about our platforms, both SnapNames and NameJet, is that there's no risk. You only pay for back orders on names that you actually get. So it's not like, I think GoDaddy, where you pay for a back order and then you have to carry the credit or something like that. And I would advise you to, confirm all this stuff. Don't take my word for it. I think ultimately, I can only speak to what we do on our platform and our universe. But, I know that for our platforms, one of the positive aspects is that, you're only paying if you win, and you don't give us any money in advance of anything. It's just if you win a name, and we're going to provision it to you, short of something really, funky happening or something breaking or some disruption or something, like, the way the service works is you only pay if you're going to get the name. And that's the way that it works. So, and then the other piece would be setting max bids. You know what, Mike? I'm doing a lot of talking. I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, I think this is an important one. Again, they're not in any order, but utilize the tools. Both platforms have max bids that'll bid on your behalf. If you understand the inventory that you want to go after, and you understand how the platform handles that, you can use those proxy bids to do the work for you. Keep that bid at the level that makes sense for you, and that'll automatically increase those bids, on your behalf, to keep you from being outbid in that auction. But just to echo, these 3 points, I think, Jonathan, I agree, that these are, some of the best practices to think of, and, utilizing all the backorder services is an important piece. Just because, Jonathan and I are saying that we have the industry-leading efficacy, you should prove that to yourself.
Well, on that note, Michael, I do want to ask that if you would participate in what will be our final poll, but would love to know what your platform of choice is for drop inventory. So if you would be willing to take a moment to answer this poll question, that would be great, to help us have a better understanding as to what of these 4 that you do commonly use. Give a few more seconds to let everyone do it. Again, thank you everyone for the participation. The polls has been very, very good. All right, looks like we're ready to close that poll. Okay, so what I'd like to do really is kind of close as far as a summary as far as what we've talked about today, but also I want to give everyone an opportunity to ask some questions. And so I'm going to open up the option for you to ask questions. So please feel free, as we're kind of closing things out on the presentation, to pop your questions in. And then, again, just as a summary here, to reiterate everything we talked about, hopefully following this webinar, kind of based on where you came into it as far as what your knowledge base was around drop inventory, hopefully we've accomplished being able to help you understand better what the drop is, how SnapNames and NameJet do fit in together, and the best practices for getting names on the drop. And on that note, what we're going to ask, along with people asking their questions, is that we have a sheet that we'd love to share with you that really just summarizes the best practices for dominating the drop. And this is the link to go get that. I'm also going to share that with you post-webinar. There'll be an opportunity for you to go and download that. But by all means, we hope that this will be a good resource tool for you. It's kind of as a reminder of some of the things we talked about, and it could be something just to be sure that as you get more aggressive possibly with working with drop inventory, that it kind of helps you understand a little bit more of the playing field. Now, bear with me. I'm going to Jonathan and Michael, as I'm kind of filtering through the questions that are coming in, is there anything that you would like to add before we close up the presentation piece of today versus the Q&A?
Well, no, I mean, I would just like, again, to thank you, Greg, and the team for putting this together and helping us work this out. I think this is great. I mean, it's always enjoy the opportunity to share some information with our customers, potential customers, and just other folks in the space. I appreciate Mike taking the time, and being able to do this, I think, is a great thing. And yeah, and I mean, I would just reiterate a lot of what we said around the best practices. I think those outline the key things. I mean, we've talked a lot about, we feel we've got the industry-leading efficacy, but let us prove that to you by using our platforms and seeing for yourself. But cast that wide net and make sure you're familiar with all the relevant platforms so that you do have the most comprehensive drop catching strategy possible. At the same time, understand how our platforms work, all the different tools and features that are available, and ultimately just the different things that you need to do in order to just be successful in catching names, the max bid, proxy bid. So yeah, and then take a look at that one sheet. I think that's definitely going to be a good resource to kind of sort of keep somewhere just to be able to look at if there's ever questions or just quick pointers, or especially for folks that are relatively new to the process and the space. And yeah, just happy to be able to share all this info and take the time to do this.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, on that note, we are recording this webinar today as well, so there will be an opportunity for people to view it after the fact, and we'll be sure to get that information out to you. I'm going to kind of break into some of the questions because I know we're running short on time. We'll just want to make sure I get to some of this. So I guess let me try to kind of paraphrase here what is being asked. I guess can someone actually go out there and catch deleting names without using a service like SnapNames or NameJet?
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I believe we've been asked this question before, and realistically, the answer is no. You'd have to, log into a registrar and then, try to register that domain at the time you believe that it's coming off. The other side of this too is that the drop catchers have direct connections into those registries, where we have direct access to be able to, attempt to grab that name before the general public can. So the answer to that question is realistically no, you can't.
Okay. There's a few questions that are similar, so again, I'm going to kind of do the best I can at trying to make it fit everyone's question. But basically, the question is that people that have placed back orders either on SnapNames or NameJet, and they didn't get the name that they had wanted. So I know you walked through this a little bit as far as like there's no 100% catch, but could you maybe explain that a little deeper? Because I think again, just make sure that people understand it. Even though you've placed a back order, there still is that chance that they could miss.
Yeah, and so I think you kind of framed it well, Greg. I mean, no drop catch drop catching platform is going to be able to catch 100% of the names that we target. So we will do our best. We utilize a lot of resources. There's a lot of time and effort and money that's gone into creating a system and improving a system to give us the best chance to catch the names that we go after. So by placing a back order on NameJet or SnapNames, you know that we are going to go after the name and we are going to put our best effort forward. However, it is not a foolproof type of situation, and there are other folks that will catch names, and so it is not 100% accuracy, and which is why it's also important to kind of cast that wide net and be aware of where the names could potentially end up and who the key players are, so that way that if we don't catch them, you still can participate in an auction and trying to get those names. So, I think the key thing to kind of keep in mind there is that we do have what we feel is the industry best efficacy, and the best chance individually. If you were going to pick one platform, it would be pick one of ours. But overall, if you really want to try to get as close to 100% in catching a particular name that you really, really want, you've got to make sure that you've got all your bases covered, which involves more than just NameJet and SnapNames.
And just to reiterate what you said, because there was a specific question around I get a little deeper, that if you're using NameJet or SnapNames, you can use either or. Again, if you're looking at using other platforms, as Jonathan recommends, the better your odds of being able to catch the name that you want. But when it comes to NameJet and SnapNames, because of the partnership that exists there, it doesn't have to be necessarily both. It could be either or. Is that correct?
Correct. You don't need to have a back order of both NameJet and SnapNames. In fact, in that situation, you can end up almost bidding against yourself. Which we don't ever, we do our best to make sure people don't bid against themselves, but you technically could do that if you're not careful. So, you pick one or the other. So it's NameJet or SnapNames, and then you've also got to cast that wide net amongst the other platforms to make sure that you've got everybody, that you've got all the relevant other platforms covered, so that you know that if you need to place a back order or where to look in case you want to try to participate post-drop in a public auction or something like that.
Okay. Could you? Sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But just to reiterate Jonathan's point, there's another side of this too. Today we're talking about drop names, but both platforms have their unique, exclusive expiry inventory. So, to be able to manage your deleting inventories in one spot is great, but you also should be looking at both platforms to look at the exclusive expiry inventory that both platforms have.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I would just to echo that, let's be clear, we're talking about the dropping domains. So the dropping domains are universal, where basically they're listed on all of the drop catching platforms. Now, if we're talking about the expiring domains, that 150,000 names that are expiring every single day, a lot of those, then they'll appear on either SnapNames or NameJet, but those are exclusive to the platforms that they're placed on. So we've got exclusive proprietary relationships with a lot of the key registrars. And for their expiring inventory to show up on either NameJet or Snap, and they do not show up anywhere else, meaning that the expiring names that are going to be on NameJet are only on NameJet. The expiring names that are on SnapNames are only on SnapNames. So when we're talking about the drop, you can place your back orders on either or. But when you're going after a specific expiring domain, then you've got to go to the platform that actually has the name on it. So that would be NameJet for NameJet's inventory, SnapNames for Snaps, GoDaddy for GoDaddy's, and so on and so forth. So, but those are largely three of the biggest from an expiring standpoint.
Well, and I'm glad you went that explanation. And just bear with me if there's anything deeper that you need to kind of go into here. But we have a question around kind of explaining a better difference between deleting names and expiring names, which I think you've kind of touched on. But maybe could you just summarize that again really quickly for everyone?
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, if we go back to that earlier slide, I think it's slide 3 or 4, maybe slide 4.
Sure.
It shows from a timeline perspective within the domain name lifecycle where the expiring names are in the lifecycle versus where the dropping names are. So for expiring names, there can be up to 200,000 names expiring in a single day. And for those names, they will run through their renewal grace period somewhere from 1 to 45 days, and maybe 30, 35, 40, 45 days. There's some period of time that those names will then run through their period of time where the registrant can still renew it. Registrars want to keep a customer forever, so they'll send plenty of notices and try to get customers to do everything they can to get customers to renew their domain even after they've expired. But once they pass that 45-day mark, then the names, if they are on a particular platform, will potentially be auctioned if there are back orders from customers. And then if a name doesn't sell an expiry, or it expires with a registrar that does not participate in that type of scenario, then the names will go into that redemption period and eventually will go into pending delete, which is where the drop is. So if you're looking at it from a life cycle standpoint, the expiry happens at the very beginning, the drop happens at the end. The expiry happens first, and there are a good amount, about more than half of the names are sort of filtered out in that time frame where things will happen and they won't go all the way to the drop. So they'll either be renewed or they'll sell it, on one of the expiry platforms, or something, or they'll be redeemed in the redemption period, and the names won't go all the way to the drop. But then at the end of that, there are those 50 to 80,000 names that do end up in the drop every single day, and there's some really great gems and some great names that end up there.
Okay. We're running a little short on time, so I'm going to try to fit in at least one more question. I apologize to everyone. There are some questions I think that are probably going to be a little bit more particular better to answer kind of one-off based on your particular circumstances, and some that we're not going to have an opportunity to get to entirely, but we will follow up with you to be sure that we answer that so that you have a clear answer. And in fact, it'll probably give us an opportunity to kind of drill into a little bit, because some of them, again, some of the detail might be a little more specific that we just need to make sure that we are clear on. So let me just ask this, try to fit in at least one or two more if I can. Is there any way that you can tell in advance what registrar will end up managing that is acquired on the drop?
No, at the the SnapNames technology will utilize the registrars that we have. We have internal registrars, and we utilize some partner registrars that are owned by other companies. There's no indication on which registrar to land until we actually catch the name and until a winner is awarded. Then that winner will be notified of where to pick up that name.
Okay. And another question quickly. I mean, is there any way to remove that 60-day lock when it comes to catching?
With .coms, it's a registry rule, so there is no way to remove that 60-day lock. But if that name is caught, on one of our platforms, there is a possibility if you're a SnapNames customer to be able to try to relist that name for sale.
Okay. Okay. Well, again, you know what, we need to kind of wrap up today, and there are I'd say a good handful of questions that we want to make sure that we answer, but again, I think that some of them have a little bit more of a particular need from the person that asked it that I don't know how we would necessarily position it the right way to be fair to everyone as far as answering those questions. So what we will do is be sure that we follow up with that. We'll reiterate that we are going to have a recording available of this webinar. What we typically do is kind of break that into smaller chunks so that you have an opportunity to kind of listen at it a little bit more of your leisure versus having to sit down for the entire time to re-listen to things. Plus, if there's a particular section that you want to go into, you'll have an opportunity to just go straight there. And then finally, again, just to remind everyone that if you are interested in downloading the best practices PDF, you can get that at this URL, dominate.pages.entreport.net, but we will be providing that link and follow-up emails, so you'll have an opportunity to download that as well. So again, I want to thank everyone for participating. You were great. Again, from just registration to promoting to attending to participating in our polls, and as well as asking questions. So I want to thank everyone in the audience for your participation, but I also again want to thank Michael and Jonathan for taking time out to go through this and this kind of detail to where hopefully it can empower people to be better equipped to go after drop inventory. So with that, we'll be closing out the webinar for the day, and again, I'll follow up with everyone after the fact. We'll get back to your questions and be sure that everyone has a response. So again, Michael, Jonathan, thank you for your time today.
All right, well, thank you, and thanks to everybody for attending, and definitely appreciate it. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Greg, and everybody attending and everybody that worked behind the scenes. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. See you next time.